So it hasn't been officially announced yet, but it seems like the Calgary Flames are doing some signings of their own. With their Alberta rivals in the Edmonton Oilers inking Leon Draisaitl to a huge $14 million AAV extension this morning, it seems like Calgary is responding with their own contract. It comes to us here via Frank Saravelli, as he's hearing the Calgary Flames are bringing defenseman Tyson Barrie to training camp on a PTO. He's one season removed from a 13-goal, 55-point campaign. He isn't the only surprising name to linger this long in the free agent pool. He needs to earn a deal, but he could be a great leadership addition for Calgary. Now, the interesting thing that I wanted to get into about this video was that yesterday, we had also spoken about the Calgary Flames and another guy on their payroll, Mackenzie Weegar, and the potential of him potentially getting traded because the St. Louis Blues had apparent interest in him before they signed that Philip Broberg offer sheet. Now, with Mackenzie Weegar being tossed into the fray, we also had a conversation about Rasmus Andersson, two guys on the Calgary Flames D-corps that are right-handed and that are fairly stable defensemen. It's interesting to me seeing the Flames add yet another right-handed guy on the blue line in Tyson Barrie, mostly because if you wanted to go by spots, you wanted to go by who's available on the team and who's going to play where, you could say it is kind of weird that the Calgary Flames already have a bunch of right-handed defensemen, some of whom they're interested in trading away, and they're adding on other guys. Now, maybe you could say, okay, well, it's Weegar out and Barrie in, something like that. Maybe there's a trade to be had here soon. But of course, Tyson Barrie, his job on the Flames is not secure. He's on a PTO. He doesn't have a regular contract. Another reason why I wanted to make this video was because Tyson Barrie's name has been kind of linked around to a bunch of other Canadian organizations that I do think are interesting. The Vancouver Canucks always seem to be involved whenever Tyson Barrie's name is mentioned, because of course, I mean, he's from Victoria, BC, so not surprising there. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a team that people have been discussing here and there because of the addition or lack thereof of Joni Hakanpää, as well as the former Toronto connection that Barrie had. But now, seeing the Calgary Flames snag him up, it does take one of these guys off the market that has been pretty much speculated to being a highly valued, underrated piece. I say highly valued because, hey, if you bring Tyson Barrie in on a PTO, this is literally a dude who is just a few years removed from being the top NHL point-producing defenseman in the NHL, who just happened to not get any Norris votes, unfortunately. Yeah, he kind of broke a record, I think, being the only guy in NHL history to lead defensemen in scoring in a season and not get any Norris consideration. That was a crazy year with the Edmonton Oilers in 2021. But in this most previous season, Tyson Barrie had 15 points in 41 games played, 1 point in one game in the playoffs. I honestly do feel like Barrie's usage on Nashville wasn't really utilized all too well. He had half a point a game with the Preds in last season's end-of-year stint with the team, but all in all, Barrie and the Predators was a pretty meh kind of experiment, mostly because even in the playoffs, part of the reason the Predators lost to the Vancouver Canucks in the first round was because they just could not score any goals. They were locking things down on defense, and it was a really tight checking battle. The expected goals were super low, the actual goals were even lower, and Tyson Barrie didn't really play much. He only had one game, and you could say that it was too little too late because the Nashville Predators had quite a bit of scoring woes in that series. Yet, what is Tyson Barrie? He is a power play quarterbacking, offensively minded, pure defenseman. He's not really going to help you out defensively. He's not really going to help you out in the back check. Sure, he'll get involved sometimes. It's not like he's a total lackadaisical bum, but he is super offensive. Like, that is the bread and butter. That is what you're getting with Tyson Barrie. And with other names that are a little bit more versatile and a little bit more useful in all situations, like Shane Gostisbehere, Eric Gustafsson, you can understand why these guys got NHL contracts at the start of free agency, and Barrie didn't. You could also say that maybe Barrie himself is in a more picky spot to choose where it is that he wants to go because he just had a down year. He wants to rebound, of course. I mean, he's 33, so he's not too old there, but still, Tyson Barrie is a name that I think will add some interesting elements to this Calgary Flames blue line. And of course, if he goes over to training camp and he doesn't produce well, let's say he's not really great and he doesn't do anything to beat out any of the other Calgary Flames players for a spot, then he'll just go back to free agency, he won't sign a regular contract with the team, and all will be history. Although, knowing Tyson Barrie, knowing his talent level, I mean, he's good enough to play in the NHL, it's just a matter of whether or not the Calgary Flames will see him fit. They could trade away a guy and then open up a roster spot for Tyson Barrie, but of course there are a few extra hurdles to go out there in that perspective. Let's go over to the tweet made by Sarah Bailey and read some replies in response to this signing. McDavid 2026 to New York Rangers says it's a low-risk, high-reward signing. I love it. Yeah, okay, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that McDavid 2026 to New York is not an Edmonton Oilers fan, but seeing Tyson Barrie go over to Calgary, if the Flames were in desperate need of another number one offensive guy and they wanted to see if Barrie still had that in him, I think this is not the worst bet you could go out there and make. I mean, obviously Barrie has had better days in the NHL, and obviously the Calgary Flames are in a little bit more of a transitory period. They just traded away a bunch of important guys. They got rid of Tanev, they got rid of Markstrom, they got rid of Lindholm, they got rid of Zadorov, they got rid of everybody else pretty much. And if they needed a number one power play quarterback defenseman to help out the power play and to maybe lessen the load of a Mackenzie Weegar, for example, Tyson Barrie's not the worst option in mind. The what could be conversation is always a good one because it's like, hey, if you sign this guy and he becomes a 60-point defenseman, breaking his career high and putting himself back into the territory of top offensive defenseman in the NHL, then okay, you look like an absolute genius signing this guy to a lower tier contract, a PTO, and then maybe a smaller amount deal. We've seen other guys, older defensemen in Calgary, really become better as they get older. I think Mark Giordano is the best example of that, although of course it was a different team, different circumstances, and a different set of personnel in front of him, but still, the Calgary Flames have had this happen to them in the past. Who knows if it will happen to them once more with Tyson Barrie. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Frank Saravelli and the update that he had over here. I also wanted to read one more reply from this Twitter thread. Dill goes out there and says, the shin pad assassin returns to Alberta. Yeah, of course, there will be some folks talking about Tyson Barrie and the faults that he has as a player. He's a purely offensively minded guy, as we had said, so pucks on goal, pucks towards the goal, pucks hitting shin pads, pucks deflecting out to the side. Maybe he's not the best at doing that nowadays, but he was, at one point, the top scoring defenseman in the NHL, just as far back as 3 years ago, so there certainly is some swagger here in his profile that you can take a look at and you can believe in. It's just a question as to whether or not the Calgary Flames are going to get that. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Tyson Barrie heading over to the Calgary Flames on a PTO. Flames fans, what are your expectations? Do you think he's going to make the team? And if he does make the team, and assume he plays 82 games, how many points does Tyson Barrie get? What's the role that he has in your squad? How does he play? And whom is it that he plays with on the power play and on his defense pairing? Lots of questions, lots of answers to be had. Let me know your thoughts and guesses in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.